The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps, trapped in glass coffins. Marcus stood in the center of the loading dock, surrounded by a semicircle of faces he'd worked beside for 3 years. Some looked shocked. Others wore expressions somewhere between horror and admiration. A few were fighting back grins. His manager, Derek, stood 10 feet away, face flushed the color of overripe tomatoes, mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. For once in his miserable career, Derek had nothing to say. The silence stretched, thick, heavy, electric. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribcage, but his hands were steady. His voice had been steady too, just moments ago, when he'd said the words he'd been rehearsing in his head for months. Years, maybe. The words everyone dreams of saying, but never does. He could still feel the weight of Derek's clipboard hitting the concrete floor, the sharp crack echoing through the warehouse like a gunshot. Could still see the exact moment Derek's arrogant smirk had melted off his face, replaced by something Marcus had never seen there before. Uncertainty. The thing about humiliation is that it leaves a residue. It sticks to your skin like grease, seeps into your bones, colors every interaction with the taste of bile. Marcus had worn that residue for so long it had started to feel normal, like a second skin he couldn't scrub off. But something had shifted in that moment. Something fundamental. The shipping manager, Tom, stood near the forklift with his arms crossed, eyebrows raised damn near to his hairline. Sarah, from receiving, had both hands covering her mouth, but her eyes were sparkling. Even Jenkins, the perpetually grumpy night shift supervisor, wore an expression that might have been respect. Derek finally found his voice. It came out strangled, higher than usual. "You don't." Marcus didn't blink, didn't look away, just stood there, shoulders square, breathing steady, letting Derek choke on his own impotent rage. The morning had started like any other. Clock in at 6 a.m. Coffee so bad it could strip paint. The familiar ache in his lower back from yesterday's double shift. The drone of conveyor belts and the beep of scanners creating a mechanical symphony that had become the soundtrack of his life. He hadn't woken up planning this, hadn't circled the date on his calendar or written a resignation speech. He'd just reached the end. That invisible line everyone has. The one you don't know exists until someone shoves you right across it. Derek had shoved him, hard, in front of everyone, again. And this time, Marcus had shoved back. The question hanging in the air now, unspoken but loud as thunder, was simple. What happens next? Because you don't challenge a man like Derek without consequences. Everyone knew that. Derek had built his entire management style on making sure everyone knew that. He ruled through intimidation, through public humiliation, through the constant threat of consequences. But here's the thing about consequences. They cut both ways. Marcus could feel the moment settling into the bones of the warehouse, becoming the kind of story people would tell in break rooms for years. The day someone finally stood up to Derek. The day someone said enough. Before we continue, if you've ever dealt with an annoying boss like this, subscribe to the channel. The Riverside Distribution Center sat on the industrial edge of town, wedged between a scrapyard and a trucking depot. 3 massive warehouses connected by covered walkways, surrounded by acres of cracked asphalt that turned into a furnace every summer and a skating rink every winter. Marcus had worked there for 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. Not that he was counting. He started as a picker on the night shift, scanning items, loading boxes, moving product from point A to point B. The work was physical, mindless. The kind of job where your body learns the movements so well, your brain can wander elsewhere entirely, which was either a blessing or a curse, depending on where your brain chose to go. The pay was enough. Not good, but enough. The benefits were decent. The schedule was brutal, but predictable. It was the kind of job you told yourself was temporary, while years somehow slipped past. Derek had been promoted to warehouse manager 14 months ago. Before that, he'd been a shift supervisor, the kind of guy who stayed just friendly enough with the workers to seem like one of them, while simultaneously documenting every minor infraction for his personnel file. The promotion had gone to his head like cheap wine. Within a week, Derek had rearranged the entire workflow system without asking anyone who actually did the work. Productivity dropped 20% that first month. The workers knew why. Management blamed them anyway. Derek managed through fear, through public call-outs, through a carefully maintained atmosphere of instability where nobody ever felt safe, secure, or valued. Morning meetings became performance humiliation sessions. Derek would stand at the front of the break room with his clipboard, reading off names and numbers like a disappointed teacher scolding elementary students. Marcus, 19 missed scans yesterday. What's your excuse? Never mind that the scanner had been malfunctioning for 3 days, and everyone knew it. Never mind that Marcus had still exceeded his quota by 15%. The excuse didn't matter. The public call-out was the point. Derek played favorites. Everyone knew it. The younger guys who laughed at his jokes, who stayed after for drinks, who played on his rec league softball team. They got the easy assignments, the better hours, the bigger raises. Everyone else got the scraps. Marcus wasn't a favorite. He came to work, did his job better than most, went home. He didn't laugh at Derek's jokes about women in the workplace, didn't join the softball team, didn't pretend to find Derek's management philosophy insightful. So Derek made sure Marcus knew his place. The assignments got worse. Overnight double shifts with no notice. The heaviest loads, the most difficult picks in the farthest corners of the warehouse where the heat never worked in winter and the AC never reached in summer. Small cruelties. Death by 1,000 cuts. The break room was a rectangle of yellowing linoleum and mismatched furniture that looked salvaged from a 1970s office liquidation sale. Fluorescent lights that flickered just enough to trigger headaches. A refrigerator that occasionally worked. A microwave that smelled like every meal anyone had ever heated in it, all at once. This was where they gathered every morning at 6:15 a.m., where Derek held court. Huddle up, people. Let's talk about yesterday's disaster. Derek always called them disasters. Good days, bad days, didn't matter. Everything was a disaster that required his brilliant intervention to solve. He'd pace back and forth, clipboard in hand, reading off numbers and names with the dramatic flair of a prosecutor presenting evidence. Behind him, the motivational poster's corporate scent looked on with their bland encouragement. Teamwork makes the dream work. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. Marcus would stand in the back, coffee going cold in his hands, watching the show. Sarah, who'd worked there 9 years, getting lectured about packing efficiency because her daughter had been sick and she'd been distracted. Tom, who knew the warehouse layout better than anyone, getting dressed down for questioning Derek's new routing system. Jenkins, old enough to be Derek's father, getting talked to like a child because he'd taken his legally mandated break at the wrong time according to Derek's unwritten, constantly changing rules. And through it all, Derek would smile. Not a warm smile, a shark's smile. The smile of someone who'd discovered they enjoyed having power over others. If this feels familiar, hit the like button. The Friday before everything changed started with Marcus's alarm not going off. His phone had died in the night, which meant he woke up at 5:47 a.m. instead of 5:15. 13 minutes to get dressed, grab something resembling breakfast, and make the 20-minute drive to work. He clocked in at 6:04. Derek was waiting. "Nice of you to join us, Marcus," loud enough for everyone in the break room to hear. "Must be nice to make your own schedule. Phone died. My bad." You're bad. Right. Derek made a show of writing something on his clipboard. 4 minutes late. That's a write-up. Third one this month. Marcus's jaw tightened. The first write-up had been for a missed scan when the system crashed. The second for leaving his station without permission to help an older co-worker who'd been struggling with a jammed pallet jack. It won't happen again. You're right about that. Derek's smile was all teeth. One more, and we're looking at suspension. Maybe we can find someone who actually wants to be here. The day crawled past like something wounded. Derek was in one of his moods, the kind where he prowled the warehouse floor looking for problems, creating them when he couldn't find any. He made Marcus reorganize an entire section of shelving that had been fine. Made him redo paperwork because the handwriting was illegible, even though the scanner had already logged everything digitally. Made him stay late to clean the break room because someone had left coffee grounds in the sink, even though Marcus had been on the floor all day and hadn't been in the break room since the morning meeting. Small things, petty things, the kind of things that shouldn't matter, but somehow accumulated into a weight that pressed down on your chest and made it hard to breathe. Tuesday was worse. A major shipment came in wrong. Different products than what was on the manifest. The vendor's error, clearly documented, nothing any of them could have done. Derek blamed Marcus, anyway. You signed for this. Derek held up the delivery receipt like evidence at a trial. The morning meeting had turned into the Marcus show. I scanned what came off the truck. That's the job. Your job is to verify, to catch errors. There's no way to verify when the boxes are sealed and labeled wrong at the source. Excuses. Derek shook his head slowly, playing to the audience. Always excuses with you. Maybe if you showed up on time, you'd have time to do your job properly. Heat crawled up Marcus's neck. The unfairness of it stung worse than the accusation. Half the people in the room knew the system, knew this wasn't his fault, but nobody said anything. They never did. Thursday brought a new indignity. Derek decided Marcus needed to be retrained on basic forklift operations. Never mind that Marcus had been certified for 2 years and had a spotless safety record. Never mind that Marcus could operate that forklift better than Derek could operate his clipboard. The retraining consisted of Derek following Marcus around for 3 hours, critiquing every movement, every decision, every breath. Too fast, too slow, wrong angle. You're not double-checking the mirrors. That was sloppy. By lunch, Marcus's hands were shaking with suppressed rage. He sat in his car in the parking lot, eating a sandwich that tasted like cardboard, staring at the steering wheel and thinking about just driving away. Not coming back. Finding some other soul-crushing job at some other warehouse with some other petty tyrant boss. But he needed this job. The insurance. The paycheck. As terrible as it was still better than nothing. That was the calculation Derek counted on. The invisible chain that kept them all in place. The afternoon brought a surprise inspection from regional management. A rare occurrence. Usually meant something big was coming. Restructuring, layoffs, policy changes. Derek transformed. Suddenly he was everyone's best friend. Helpful, supportive, encouraging. He gave Marcus a thumbs up when the regional manager walked past, even called him buddy. The performance would have been funny if it wasn't so insulting. The instant the regional manager left, Derek's mask dropped. Back to work. And Marcus, I need you on the dock tonight. Overnight shipment coming in. Should only be a few hours. I worked a double yesterday. That puts me at overtime, yeah. You complaining about extra money? I'm saying I'm exhausted, and I'm saying we need someone on the dock. Unless you want to reconsider whether this job is right for you. Has something like this ever happened to you? Tell me in the comments. Friday morning, Marcus woke up with a headache that felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to his temples. 3 hours of sleep after the overnight shipment. His back screamed with every movement. His hands ached. His eyes felt full of sand. But he dragged himself out of bed anyway, because that's what you did. The warehouse was busier than usual when he arrived. A major retail customer had moved up their order deadline, which meant everyone was scrambling. The kind of chaos that made managers nervous and workers exhausted. Derek was in rare form. He'd set up what he called an efficiency station near the loading dock. A folding table with his laptop, clipboard, and a stopwatch. Like some kind of Olympic judge, timing everyone's loads and making notes. Let's see some hustle, people. We're not getting paid to take our time. They were actually getting paid exactly to take their time, to do things properly. But accuracy and safety didn't matter when Derek was trying to impress someone higher up the chain. Marcus was assigned to loading trucks. Heavy work. Repetitive. His back protested with every box, every pallet, every step. Around 10 a.m., a situation developed. One of the younger workers, Danny, was struggling with a particularly heavy pallet. The hydraulic jack was acting up, only lifting halfway, making it nearly impossible to maneuver. Danny was trying to work the problem, trying to get the jack unstuck without damaging the product. Derek descended like a bird of prey. What's the holdup? Move it! The jack's stuck. I'm trying to... I don't want to hear problems. I want solutions. Move faster or get out of the way. Sir, if I force it, the whole pallet could... Did I ask for your opinion? Derek's voice echoed across the loading dock. Everyone could hear. Everyone was watching now. Danny's face flushed red. The kid was maybe 22, still new enough to think hard work and following rules would earn respect. Marcus knew better. He'd watched Derek break that optimism out of at least a dozen workers. Just let me grab the other jack, Danny said quietly. It'll take 2 minutes. You've already wasted 5. Figure it out. Now. Danny did what any reasonable person would do. He went to get the working jack from the other side of the dock. Derek followed him, voice rising with each step. Where do you think you're going? I told you to move that pallet. I need a working jack. You need to learn how to do your job without making excuses. The loading dock had gone quiet, except for Derek's voice. Everyone had stopped working to watch the show. This was bad leadership. Dangerous leadership. The kind that got people hurt. Marcus felt something coiling in his chest. A familiar anger he'd been pushing down for months. But the morning continued. Danny got the pallet loaded. Derek found someone else to humiliate. The rhythm of work resumed. Then came lunch. The break room was packed. First shift, second shift. A few office workers from upstairs. Everyone crammed together in the yellow-lit rectangle, eating food from home or the vending machines that charged $3 for stale chips. Marcus sat at his usual table in the back corner. Quiet. Trying to make his headache recede through sheer willpower. Derek entered like a game show host. All right, everyone, gather round. We need to talk about this morning's performance. Groans. Barely suppressed sighs. Everyone knew what was coming. Derek pulled up something on his laptop, turned it to face the room. A spreadsheet. Color-coded. Red, yellow, green. Names and numbers. So let's review who's pulling their weight and who's coasting. He went down the list, praising his favorites with exaggerated enthusiasm. The softball team guys got outstanding and exceptional. Sarah, who'd worked there 9 years and never missed a deadline, got adequate. Tom got needs improvement. Then Derek got to Marcus's name. And here we have our star performer, Marcus. The sarcasm dripped like acid. 43 loads this morning. Should have been 60 minimum. Care to explain? Marcus looked up from his sandwich. Every eye in the room was on him. I was on heavy loads. Large furniture. That's normal pace for... Normal pace would be faster. Derek smiled. Maybe if you spent less time taking breaks and more time working, we'd hit our numbers. I took one break. My legally required break. Legally required. Derek laughed. Actually laughed. A few of his favorites joined in. Always hiding behind rules instead of showing initiative, the coil in Marcus's chest tightened. I'm doing my job. You're doing the bare minimum, which, let's be honest, seems to be your specialty. The room had gone completely silent now. The kind of silence that felt dangerous. Anything else? Marcus kept his voice level. Actually. Derek's smile widened. I've been reviewing your performance over the past few months. The late arrivals, the missed scans, the attitude problems. I'm recommending you be moved to probationary status. 30 days to improve or find somewhere else to coast. Heat flooded through Marcus's body. His hands clenched into fists under the table. Probationary status. For what? For underperformance. For not being a team player. For, I've exceeded quota every month for 2 years. Quota isn't everything. Attitude matters. Culture matters. And there it was. The real reason. Not performance. Not numbers. Attitude. Culture. Translation. Marcus didn't kiss Derek's ass enough. This is bullshit. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. The room somehow got even quieter. Even Derek's favorites looked uncomfortable now. Derek's expression shifted. The fake smile disappeared, replaced by something colder. What did you just say? Marcus stood up, slowly. His chair scraped against the linoleum like a scream. I said, this is bullshit. You're targeting me because I don't pretend you're some kind of management genius. Because I don't laugh at your jokes or join your softball team. Because I actually do my job instead of spending all day looking for people to humiliate. If you like stories like this, subscribe for more. Derek's face went through several colors in quick succession. Pink, red, almost purple. You need to watch your mouth. No. The word came out calm, certain. Marcus felt something breaking loose inside him. Something that had been straining against its restraints for months. Actually, I don't. You know what I need to do? I need to say what everyone in this room is thinking but won't say because they're afraid you'll retaliate. Marcus, sit down. Derek's voice had an edge now. Dangerous. Threatening. Marcus didn't sit down. You're a terrible manager, Derek. Everyone knows it. The only people who pretend otherwise are the ones who benefit from sucking up to you. You don't lead, you intimidate, you don't manage, you micromanage, you don't develop your team. You tear them down so you can feel big. The break room was frozen. Sarah had both hands over her mouth. Tom's eyes were wide as dinner plates. Even Derek's favorites looked shocked. Derek took a step forward. You're done here. Pack your things. You're fired. You can't fire me in the break room without HR present. That's company policy. Or did you not read the employee handbook before deciding you were too important to follow it? That landed. Derek's mouth opened, closed. He hadn't expected Marcus to know the rules. And you want to know something funny? Marcus continued, voice steady, loud enough for everyone to hear. The only reason I'm still here is because I need the insurance, not because the job is good. Not because the management is competent, because I need the health insurance. He took a step toward Derek. Not aggressive, just closing the distance. Removing the physical buffer Derek hid behind. Do you know what it's like to be good at your job and treated like you're incompetent? To show up every day and give your best and have someone tear you down in front of your coworkers because they enjoy the power trip? To watch other people get rewarded for being friends with the boss while you get punished for just wanting to do your work and go home? Derek backed up a step. Actually backed up. You're making a mistake. No. The mistake was keeping my mouth shut for 14 months. The mistake was thinking, if I just kept my head down and did good work, that would be enough. The mistake was treating you with respect you never earned and definitely never reciprocated. Marcus turned to address the room. All those familiar faces. People he'd worked beside for years. People who'd all been on the receiving end of Derek's particular brand of management. How many of you have wanted to say this? How many times have you gone home angry or frustrated or humiliated because Derek needed to feel important? How many of you have covered for his incompetence, fixed his mistakes, done his job for him while he took credit? Heads were nodding. Small movements, but they were there. Marcus turned back to Derek. You told me I need to improve my attitude. Here's my improved attitude. I'm done pretending you're anything other than a bully with a clipboard. I'm done accepting being treated like garbage because I need the paycheck. I'm done watching you tear down good people who actually care about doing this job right. Derek had gone pale now. His hands were shaking. The clipboard rattled against his leg. You're going to regret this. Maybe. Probably. But right now, in this moment, I've never felt better about something in my entire life. The silence stretched out, thick and heavy and electric. Then Marcus did something he'd fantasized about for months. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his work badge. The plastic card that granted access to the building, the equipment, the systems. The physical representation of his employment at Riverside Distribution Center. He looked at it for a long moment. 3 years, 2 months, 17 days, reduced to a piece of plastic with a terrible photo. Then he held it out toward Derek. Derek stared at it like Marcus was offering him a live grenade. Take it. What? Take it. I quit. Effective immediately. I'm not getting fired by you. I'm not giving you that satisfaction. I'm walking out of here on my own terms. You can't quit without 2 weeks' notice. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. Watch me. You've spent 14 months making this place unbearable. You've violated company policy more times than I can count. You've created a hostile work environment. You've retaliated against employees for speaking up. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk out that door. And if you try to mess with my final paycheck or my unemployment claim, I've got a folder at home with every single policy violation, every illegal schedule change, every piece of documented harassment you've subjected me and my co-workers to. Derek's face went ashen. Because Marcus wasn't bluffing. Derek knew Marcus wasn't bluffing. Corporate would be very interested in that folder, Marcus continued, voice calm as still water. I imagine HR would be too. And I'm guessing I'm not the only one here who's been documenting things. Am I? He looked around the room, saw guilty faces, knowing faces. Sarah's hand slowly rose, then Tom's, then Jenkins, then 5 more, 10 more. Derek saw it too, watched his carefully constructed kingdom of fear crack apart like thin ice. Marcus placed his badge on the table in front of Derek. The small plastic click of it hitting the surface was the loudest sound in the room. I'm done. Everyone else? That's your choice. But if you stay, stop protecting him. Stop making excuses. Stop letting him treat you like you're disposable. He grabbed his lunch bag, looked around the room one last time. Good luck, everyone. You deserve better than this. Then Marcus walked out. Through the break room door, past the loading dock where he'd spent countless hours, through the main corridor with its motivational posters that had always rung hollow, out into the parking lot where the mid-morning sun felt like freedom. His hands were shaking now, adrenaline and terror and relief all crashing through him at once. He'd just quit his job. No backup plan, no safety net, no idea what came next. But for the first time in 14 months, he could breathe. What would you have done in that moment? Let me know below. Marcus sat in his car for 10 minutes before he could make his hands steady enough to start the engine. The parking lot stretched out around him, empty except for a few scattered vehicles. The warehouse building loomed in his rearview mirror like a monument to a war he'd just fought. His phone buzzed. Once, twice, 7 times in rapid succession. Text messages from Sarah, from Tom, from Danny, from people he'd barely spoken to outside of work-related conversations. Sarah. Holy shit. Holy shit. That was amazing. Tom. Been waiting 3 years for someone to say that to his face. Danny. Thank you. Seriously. Thank you. More messages kept coming. The group chat he didn't even know existed was exploding. People were talking. The story was spreading through the warehouse like wildfire. Marcus turned off his phone. He needed silence, needed to process what he'd just done. The drive home felt surreal. Every traffic light, every turn. Normal life continuing around him while his entire world had just shifted on its axis. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it that morning. Dishes in the sink, unmade bed, coffee mug still half full on the counter. Everything the same, except he was different. He made fresh coffee, sat on his couch, stared at the wall. The weight he'd been carrying for 14 months was gone. Just gone. The constant low-grade anxiety. The dread every morning when his alarm went off. The knot in his stomach during the drive to work, replaced by a different kind of anxiety. The practical kind. He had maybe 3 months of savings if he was careful. Unemployment would help, but wouldn't cover everything. He'd need to start looking for work immediately. Update his resume. Start networking. But underneath the practical worry was something else. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. He'd stood up. He'd spoken truth. He'd refused to be diminished anymore. His phone buzzed again. He'd turned it back on without thinking. This time, it was an unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Then curiosity got the better of him. Hello? Marcus? This is Janet Reeves from Riverside HR. His stomach dropped. Here it came. The consequences. The retaliation Derek had promised. Hi. I need you to come back to the facility tomorrow at 10 a.m. There's been a situation, and we need to conduct an investigation. Derek has made some serious allegations, and we need your statement. I quit. I'm not employed there anymore. I understand. But this investigation involves potential policy violations and workplace conduct issues. Your participation would be appreciated, though not required. Marcus closed his eyes, rubbed his temples. What kind of allegations? I can't discuss the details over the phone, but I can tell you that multiple employees have filed formal complaints. Your name came up in several witness statements as someone who could provide corroboration. Multiple complaints, filed immediately after he'd walked out. People had followed his lead. I'll be there. Thank you. And Marcus? Janet's voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, I've heard preliminary accounts of what happened in the break room. Between you and me, off the record, it's about time someone said something. The call ended. Marcus sat there holding his phone, feeling the pieces rearrange themselves. Saturday morning came too early and too slow at the same time. Marcus dressed carefully, business casual, prepared notes on his phone, dates, incidents, policy violations he'd witnessed. If he was doing this, he was doing it right. The Riverside parking lot looked different in the mid-morning weekend light. Quieter, less oppressive somehow. Janet met him at the front entrance. Mid-50s, professional, the kind of HR person who actually seemed to care about doing the job properly rather than just protecting management. Thank you for coming. We'll be in conference room B. I'll have you know that Derek is currently on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation. Marcus blinked. Administrative leave? 10 employees filed formal complaints yesterday afternoon. Another 6 filed this morning. When we reviewed security footage from the break room and pulled the management logs, we found substantial evidence of policy violations, hostile work environment creation, and retaliation against employees who raised concerns. They walked through the familiar corridors, past the break room where everything had exploded, past the loading dock where he'd spent 3 years of his life. The conference room was small, windowless, with a table and chairs and a recording device. For 3 hours, Marcus answered questions, gave dates, described incidents, corroborated statements from other employees, walked Janet through Derek's pattern of behavior with the precision of someone who'd been documenting everything. When it was over, Janet turned off the recorder and leaned back in her chair. This is going to result in termination. Derek's termination. You're aware of that? I figured. Several employees have asked if you'd be interested in returning to your position. Tom specifically said the warehouse would function better with you there than with Derek. Marcus considered it. The easy path. Go back. Collect the paycheck. Return to familiar routine. I appreciate that. But no. I need something different. Somewhere different. Janet nodded like she'd expected that answer. I understand, for what it's worth. I'm sorry it took this long. HR should have caught this pattern earlier. We failed you and your coworkers. You did. I'll make sure your exit paperwork is processed properly. Positive reference. Full payout of vacation time. If Derek tries anything with your unemployment claim, call me directly. She handed him a business card. And Marcus? What you did yesterday, standing up like that? It gave 15 other people the courage to do the same. That matters. If this felt satisfying, subscribe now. 3 months later, Marcus sat in a different warehouse. Smaller operation, family-owned, better management. The job wasn't glamorous. Still moving boxes, still early mornings, still physical work that left him tired at the end of the day. But he wasn't exhausted, wasn't carrying that weight of constant low-grade dread. His new manager, Carol, treated people like adults, like professionals. When there was a problem, she asked questions instead of assigning blame. When someone made a mistake, she helped them fix it instead of humiliating them in front of their peers. The difference was night and day. Marcus's phone buzzed during his lunch break. Message from Sarah. Thought you'd want to know. Derek got a job at a warehouse across town. Lasted 2 weeks before they fired him for management incompatibility. Word travels in this industry. Marcus smiled. Not gloating. Just satisfied. He typed back. Karma works slow, but it works. The break room here was brighter than Riverside. Actual windows. Furniture that didn't look salvaged from a dumpster. Coffee that didn't taste like industrial solvent. His coworker Jake sat across from him, eating homemade lunch from a blue cooler. You settling in? Yeah, it's good here. Carol's solid. My last place was run by this nightmare manager who made everyone's life hell. I put up with it for 2 years before I finally bailed. Marcus knew that story. Knew it well. What made you finally leave? Jake shrugged. Realized I was dreading my job more than I was enjoying anything else in my life. Figured that wasn't sustainable. Took a leap. Ended up here. Best decision I ever made. After lunch, Marcus was helping organize a storage section when Carol stopped by. Hey Marcus, got a minute? Sure. I wanted to check in. You've been here 3 months now. How are you finding everything? The question was genuine, not performative. Carol actually wanted to know. Honestly, it's the best work environment I've had in years. Feels like people actually respect each other here. Carol smiled. That's the goal. I don't believe in ruling through fear. Never understood managers who do. You get better work from people who feel valued than from people who feel terrorized. Not everyone sees it that way. No. But those managers don't last. Eventually people speak up. Eventually the system corrects itself. Might take time, but it happens. Marcus thought about Derek, about Riverside, about that moment in the break room when everything had cracked open. Sometimes it takes someone pushing it along. True. Takes courage, though. Most people are too afraid of the consequences to speak up. I was afraid too, but I was more afraid of staying silent, of becoming someone who just accepted being treated like that. Carol nodded slowly. You know, when you interviewed here, I called your references, talked to Janet at Riverside. She told me what happened, said you stood up to a manager who'd been creating a toxic environment, said you did it knowing it would cost you your job. Marcus hadn't known she'd heard the whole story. That didn't concern you? The conflict? Are you kidding? That's exactly the kind of person I want working here. Someone with enough spine to speak up when something's wrong. Someone who won't just go along with bad leadership because it's easier. The conversation stuck with Marcus for the rest of the day. That night, he got another message, this time from Danny, the young worker Derek had berated on the loading dock that day. Hey man, I know we weren't close at Riverside, but I wanted to say thanks again. After you left and Derek got fired, things changed. The new manager is actually decent. But more than that, people aren't afraid anymore. You showed us we could speak up. That matters. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. He'd walked out thinking only about his own survival, his own dignity, his own breaking point. He hadn't realized the ripples would spread that far. Lying in bed that night, Marcus thought about the person he'd been 3 years ago when he'd started at Riverside. Younger, optimistic, believing that hard work and keeping your head down were enough. He'd learned hard lessons in that warehouse about power, about dignity, about the cost of silence and the price of speaking. But he'd also learned something more important, that there's a line, an invisible boundary that everyone has, and when someone pushes you across that line, you have two choices. Stay silent and let it define you, or speak up and reclaim yourself. He'd chosen to speak. And yes, there had been consequences, fear, uncertainty, the scramble to find new work. But those consequences had been temporary. The dignity he'd reclaimed? That was permanent. The warehouse job wasn't his dream, wasn't his calling, wasn't going to make him rich or famous or fulfilled in some cosmic sense. But it was honest work, done with respect, for fair pay, under decent management. And that was enough, maybe more than enough. Because at the end of the day, work was just work, a means to an end. But how you let yourself be treated while doing that work, that was about who you were, what you accepted, what you tolerated. Derek was gone from Marcus's life, but the lesson remained. Never again would he stay silent when someone tried to diminish him. Never again would he accept poor treatment just to keep a paycheck. Never again would he let someone else's need for power make him feel small. He'd stood in that break room and said the words everyone was thinking. He'd walked out knowing he might regret it, but he'd regretted staying silent more. The warehouse lights outside his apartment window blinked on as evening fell. Somewhere, someone was working an overnight shift, dealing with a difficult manager, facing the same choices Marcus had faced. He hoped they'd find their voice, their line, their moment, because everyone deserved to work with dignity. Everyone deserved to be heard. And no paycheck was worth losing yourself. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps these stories coming.